I never thought I'd be one of those people sharing their personal life online, seeking advice from strangers. But here I am. I'm Mike, 35, and my wife, Amanda, 33, and I have been married for 7 years. Our relationship always seemed solid, great communication, a fulfilling sex life, and mutual trust, or so I thought. It all started with a minor observation, something so trivial I brushed it off at first. Amanda began taking her phone everywhere. I mean everywhere. She had always been the type to leave it on the counter or in her bag. But suddenly it was like it was glued to her hand. I joked about her being addicted to Instagram, and she'd laugh, saying, "It's nothing, just checking on work emails or silly videos." Then there was the new lingerie. She came home with several sets. Lacy, intricate things she hadn't worn in years. When I commented on it, she winked and said, "Just wanted to spice things up for us." And at first I believed her. Who wouldn't want their wife making an effort? But the real red flag came one Friday night. I was at a friend's house, and Amanda texted me, saying she was staying in for some self-care. I thought nothing of it until I came home earlier than expected and found the bedroom impeccably clean, candles burnt down to stubs, and a faint trace of perfume lingering in the air. Amanda was in bed, scrolling on her phone, acting completely casual. "Big night of self-care, huh?" I teased, leaning against the doorframe. She smiled but didn't look up. "Yeah, bubble bath and some wine. You know me." Something about the way she said it felt off. Her voice was too light, her smile too perfect. But I shook it off. For a while, I convinced myself I was overthinking things. After all, Amanda was my wife. We had no secrets. At least that's what I told myself. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted, and I had no idea just how twisted the truth would turn out to be. That lingering doubt kept gnawing at me. Amanda's behavior wasn't overtly suspicious, but little things began to pile up. She started locking her phone with a password, something she'd never bothered to do before. Her explanations for being busy on weekends became vague, and she had an odd habit of double-checking the locks on the house whenever I left for errands. The breaking point came one evening when I went to grab something from our closet. I was looking for a box of old photos when I noticed a small, black device sitting on the top shelf. It was sleek and modern, not much bigger than a deck of cards. Curious, I picked it up and realized it was a portable hard drive. Amanda and I didn't use external drives. Everything we had was stored in the cloud. So why was this here? I took it to my home office, plugged it into my computer, and opened the folders. At first, it seemed harmless, random file names, dates, and numbers. But then I clicked on a file titled 03-07 bedroom. It was a video. My stomach dropped as the screen lit up with an image of our bedroom, dimly lit but unmistakable. The angle was strange, as if the camera was mounted on a high shelf. And there we were, Amanda and I, caught in a private, intimate moment. I slammed the spacebar, pausing the video, my mind reeling. Why was this here? Who recorded this? And worse, why hadn't Amanda mentioned anything? I clicked on another file, 02-28 living room, and my heart sank further. This wasn't us. It was Amanda, alone, dressed provocatively, staring directly into the camera. She wasn't just recording herself. She was performing. I sat back in my chair, my pulse racing, a nauseating mix of confusion, anger, and betrayal coursing through me. What was this? Who was she sending these to? And why? I closed the files, my hands trembling, and ejected the drive. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, demand answers, but another part of me, the rational part, told me I needed more information. I decided to put the drive back exactly where I found it. But now I couldn't unsee what I had seen. Amanda was hiding something bigger than I could have imagined. That night, as she lay next to me, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened, I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts spiraling. The woman I thought I knew had become a stranger, and I had no idea how deep her betrayal went. The next morning, I couldn't look at Amanda without feeling a sharp pang of disgust and confusion. I forced myself to act normal, though every moment with her felt like I was walking on eggshells. After she left for work, I went back to the closet, retrieved the hard drive, and started analyzing every file. The videos spanned months, each labeled with dates and locations within our house, bedroom, living room, even the bathroom. Some were of us together, filmed without my knowledge. Others were just Amanda, alone, performing in ways I didn't even recognize. It got worse. I found files with other names: Mark Request, Thomas Special, Viewer 003. These weren't just private recordings. Amanda was sharing them. The messages confirmed it. Embedded in one of the video folders was a text document filled with usernames, payment amounts, and requests for specific acts or outfits. My wife wasn't just making videos. She was running some kind of underground voyeuristic operation, and I was an unwilling participant. I felt physically ill. My stomach churned as I realized the scope of what was happening. My wife had turned our home, our life, into entertainment for strangers. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed to understand the full extent of her betrayal. So I set up my own surveillance. I installed hidden cameras throughout the house and synced them to my phone. If Amanda was bold enough to continue this while I was around, I'd catch her. It didn't take long. That same evening, Amanda claimed she had a virtual girls' night and needed some privacy. I pretended to believe her and said I'd go out for a drink. Instead, I parked down the street and monitored the camera feed. As soon as I left, she sprang into action. She set up her phone on a tripod in the living room, adjusted the lights, and changed into something skimpy, an outfit I'd never seen before. What I saw next confirmed everything. She started talking directly to the camera, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Hey everyone, I've got something special for you tonight. Hope you're ready." My blood boiled as I realized the depths of her deception. She wasn't just doing this behind my back. She was profiting off it, treating our marriage and our home as a stage for her sordid side hustle. The anger burned in me, but I stayed calm. This wasn't the time for an emotional outburst. If she thought she could get away with this, she was wrong. I wasn't going to just confront her. I was going to make her pay. Over the next few days, I threw myself into gathering evidence. I saved screenshots of her live streams, downloaded her transaction records, and documented every instance of her activity. I even traced some of the usernames from her video requests to a discreet adult streaming platform. It didn't take long to confirm that Amanda had built a lucrative operation behind my back. She wasn't just sharing intimate moments. She was auctioning off access to our lives, our privacy. The sickening part was the level of interaction she maintained with her audience. I found entire chat logs where she flirted, took special requests, and joked about how clueless I was. "Don't worry," she'd written in one message. "He's too busy with work to notice anything." Each word was a dagger. She wasn't just cheating physically. She was betraying me emotionally, mocking my trust, and exploiting my ignorance. Then I found the final straw. In one of the recent folders, there was a file titled Couples Night 04-15. I clicked on it hesitantly, dreading what I might see. The video started innocently enough. It was of Amanda and me, laughing and talking during one of our rare evenings together. But the longer I watched, the more horrified I became. The video didn't stop at dinner. It followed us into the bedroom, capturing everything. Every kiss, every touch, every word. She'd set up a hidden camera to record us without my knowledge or consent. And then she'd shared it, complete with a caption, "Raw and real. Exclusive access to a married couple's passion." I slammed my laptop shut, my breath coming in ragged gasps. This wasn't just betrayal, it was violation. She'd taken something sacred and sold it to strangers. The rage bubbled to the surface, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I confronted her now, she'd find a way to manipulate the situation, to twist the narrative. No, this needed to be precise, calculated. I wasn't going to just confront her. I was going to destroy her entire charade. I spent the next week methodically preparing my revenge. Every action I took was deliberate, every decision fueled by the need to make Amanda feel the depth of my betrayal. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about reclaiming the life she'd desecrated. First, I contacted a lawyer, explaining the situation in detail. My evidence was ironclad: videos, payment logs, and chat transcripts. He assured me that we could use this to not only secure a favorable divorce settlement, but also pursue legal action for violating my privacy. Next, I created a backup of every file I'd gathered and stored it in a secure cloud drive. If Amanda tried to delete anything or feign ignorance, I'd still have everything I needed. The most critical step was setting a trap. Amanda had grown complacent, assuming I was too naive to ever catch on. I used this to my advantage, playing the role of the oblivious husband while carefully orchestrating her downfall. One evening, I told her I'd be out of town for a work trip, a believable excuse since my job occasionally required overnight travel. In reality, I rented a room at a nearby hotel, watching the live feed from the cameras I'd installed in the house. Sure enough, Amanda wasted no time. She dressed provocatively, set up her tripod, and started another live stream. This time, I recorded everything as it happened, capturing not just her performance but her interactions with her audience. Toward the end of the stream, she said something that sealed her fate. "By the way, guys, I might have a new surprise for you soon. Stay tuned. It's going to be worth it." I clenched my fists, knowing exactly what she meant. She wasn't just planning to continue this, it was escalating. That was the moment I decided it was time to end this. The next day, I returned home acting as if nothing had happened. Amanda greeted me with a warm smile, kissing me on the cheek. "How was the trip?" she asked, her voice full of false sweetness. "Busy," I replied, forcing a grin. "How was your weekend?" "Quiet," she said, turning back to the kitchen counter where she was slicing fruit. "Just stayed in, caught up on some reading." The ease with which she lied made my blood boil, but I played along. "Glad you had some time to relax," I said, leaning casually against the counter. That evening, after dinner, I decided it was time to set things in motion. "You know," I began, sipping my drink as we sat in the living room, "I've been thinking about setting up cameras around the house. For security." Amanda's face froze for a split second before she recovered, her laugh coming out a little too forced. "Cameras? What for? We live in a safe neighborhood." "Just a precaution," I said, keeping my tone light. "You never know these days." She hesitated, her fingers gripping the edge of the couch cushion. "I guess. But doesn't that feel a bit invasive? I mean, it's our home." "Oh, I think it's a great idea," I said, leaning forward slightly. "After all, it's not like we have anything to hide, right?" Her eyes darted away, and I saw the faintest flicker of panic cross her face. "Of course not," she said, forcing a smile. The tension in the room was palpable. I could see her mind working, trying to assess whether I knew anything. But I wasn't done yet. "I've actually already tested a setup," I said casually, gesturing toward the bookshelf. "I installed a few cameras last week, just to see how they'd work. Pretty good quality, too." Amanda's face turned pale. "You installed cameras?" I nodded, watching her reaction carefully. "Yeah, one in the living room, one in the bedroom. I even have a live feed on my phone. Want to see?" Her hand flew to her mouth, her breathing quickening. "Mike, I didn't know." "Didn't know?" I interrupted, my voice sharp now. "Didn't know that I'd finally see what you've been doing? Didn't know that I'd figure out you've been sharing our life, our most private moments, with strangers." She tried to speak, but no words came out. I stood, towering over her, my anger finally unleashed. "How long, Amanda? How long have you been turning our marriage into a sick joke for money and attention?" "I can explain," she stammered, her voice trembling. "No," I snapped. "You don't get to explain. You've been lying to me, recording me without my consent, and selling those videos to God knows who. Do you have any idea how disgusting that is?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. "Mike, please, I didn't mean for it to get this far. It was just supposed to be a way to make extra money." I laughed bitterly. "Extra money? At the cost of my trust? At the cost of our marriage?" She reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back, my voice cold. "You're done, Amanda. And by the time I'm through with you, everyone who helped you is going to regret it just as much as you will." Her face crumbled as she realized the gravity of her situation. But this was just the beginning. Amanda sat frozen on the couch, her mouth opening and closing as if she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Her tears began to fall, but I felt nothing but a cold satisfaction. "You think tears will fix this?" I said, my voice low but cutting. "You think crying will undo the humiliation you've put me through?" "Mike, I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Didn't mean to?" I said, my anger rising again. "You recorded me without my consent, Amanda. You sold our privacy to strangers for money. You lied to me for months, maybe years. How can you stand there and pretend it wasn't deliberate?" She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. "I was desperate." "For what?" I roared. "For money? For attention? Or for the thrill of betraying your husband while you laughed behind my back?" When she didn't answer, I leaned in, my voice quieter but no less venomous. "I know everything. The videos, the chats, the payments. I've seen the logs. I've seen what you've been saying about me." "He's too clueless to ever notice?" "Really, Amanda?" Her head snapped up, her face pale. You went through my files?" "Of course I did," I said, my voice hard. "And do you know what I found? Your little performance for Viewer 003. Your promises to bring something special for your audience soon. Were you planning on dragging me into more of your sick games?" She shook her head violently. "No, I swear. I wasn't going to." "Save it," I said, cutting her off. "I don't believe a word you say. And just so you know, I've already backed up everything. Every video, every transaction, every message. I have it all." Her eyes widened in terror. "You can't, Mike, please don't share that with anyone. It'll ruin me." I smirked, the cold satisfaction in me growing. "Ruin you? Oh, Amanda, I think it's time you learned what real consequences feel like." I stood up, towering over her as she sobbed on the couch. "This is what's going to happen," I said, my voice like steel. "I'm filing for divorce, and I'll be using every single piece of evidence I have to make sure you walk away with nothing. And as for your little audience, they'll know exactly who you are when this goes public." "No!" she cried, scrambling to her knees. "Mike, please, you can't do that. I'll lose everything." "That's the point," I said coldly. "You destroyed everything we had. Now it's your turn to watch your life fall apart." I turned and walked out of the room, her pleas following me like distant echoes. But I didn't look back. This was just the start. Amanda thought she could violate me and get away with it. She was about to learn how wrong she was. After leaving Amanda sobbing on the couch, I locked myself in my home office and started executing the next phase of my plan. The first thing I did was send the backed-up evidence to my lawyer. The files were comprehensive, undeniable, and damning. The lawyer assured me we could move swiftly to file for divorce with grounds for irreconcilable betrayal and invasion of privacy. But that wasn't enough. I wanted Amanda to feel the weight of what she had done. I created an anonymous email and crafted a carefully worded message. Attached were snippets of her most damning interactions with her audience, highlighting how she mocked me and flaunted her exploitation of our relationship. I sent it to her biggest sponsors, the ones who had paid her for her performances. I knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about ending her ability to profit from her deceit and lies. And with her sponsors aware of the truth, they'd want nothing to do with her. The next day I waited. Amanda avoided me entirely, which suited me just fine. She stayed locked in the bedroom, probably panicking about what I'd do next. And then the calls started. "Who are you?" she screamed into her phone from the other room. "Why are you sending these lies to my contacts?" I chuckled bitterly. "Lies? Oh, Amanda." An hour later, she stormed into my office, her face streaked with tears, holding her phone out. "Mike, what the hell is wrong with you? Do you have any idea what you've done?" I leaned back in my chair, calmly meeting her glare. "What I've done?" I repeated. "You're angry at me? After everything you've done?" "They're pulling out, Mike. The sponsors are canceling their payments. They're threatening to sue me for breaching their terms." "Good," I said coolly. Maybe next time you'll think twice before selling out the person who trusted you most. Her phone buzzed again, and she flinched as she looked at the screen. It's all over, she whispered, her voice trembling. They're threatening to expose me. I stood up, my voice steady. And that's just the beginning. You humiliated me, Amanda. You exploited me. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? She collapsed into the chair, covering her face with her hands. You're ruining my life, she sobbed. No, I said firmly. You ruined your life. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. I walked out of the room, leaving her to grapple with the fallout of her own choices. It wasn't over yet, but watching the cracks form in her carefully constructed world felt like justice. The next few days were a whirlwind of chaos, and Amanda was at the center of it. Her phone buzzed nonstop with calls, texts, and emails. I didn't need to eavesdrop to know what was happening. Her sponsors, audience, and collaborators were all turning on her. I made myself scarce, staying in the guest room and keeping my interactions with her to a minimum. Each time I saw her, she looked more frazzled, her makeup smudged, and her hair unkempt. She'd taken to pacing around the house, muttering to herself or breaking into frustrated sobs. One evening, I overheard her on the phone. No, I didn't tell him anything. He found out on his own. I swear, I didn't give him your names. That piqued my interest. I stepped closer to the partially open door, careful not to make a sound. He's bluffing, she continued, her voice shaky. He doesn't have anything on you guys. Just stick to the plan and... Hello? Hello? Damn it. I pushed the door open, and she jumped, clutching her phone to her chest. Stick to what plan, Amanda? I asked coldly, her face drained of color. Nothing, she stammered. It's nothing. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. You're lying. Again. Care to try the truth this time? She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. Mike, it's not what you think, she began, but I cut her off. It's exactly what I think, I said, my voice low and dangerous. You weren't just selling videos, were you? You were collaborating, working with people. Who else is involved? Amanda. She pressed her lips together, refusing to answer.
I stepped closer, towering over her.
I already have enough evidence to ruin you, Amanda. Do you really want me to dig deeper? Because I will. And I won't stop until every single person involved in this mess is exposed. Her defiance crumbled, and she burst into tears. Fine, she screamed. Yes, I was working with others. They helped me set everything up, they promoted the streams, and they got a cut of the profits. Are you happy now?
I stared at her, disgusted.
Names, I demanded. No, she said, shaking her head. I can't. They'll come after me if I betray them. I leaned in, my voice a deadly whisper. And you think I won't? Amanda, you have no idea how far I'm willing to go to make sure you pay for this. So either you tell me or I'll find out on my own. And when I do, it'll be worse for everyone. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. All right? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I'll tell you everything. I nodded, stepping back. Good. Because if you don't, Amanda, I swear, this will only get uglier. Amanda sat down, trembling, and I could see the fear etched across her face. This wasn't just guilt. This was someone trapped in a situation of her own making, but still scared of what was to come. It started small, she said, her voice shaky. I joined a private online community. They shared ideas, ways to make money discreetly. It sounded harmless at first, just people exploring their fantasies. I crossed my arms, unmoved. And then, her gaze dropped to the floor. One of the members, a guy named Vincent, said he could help me set up a channel. He said I'd make real money if I had the right content. He coached me on how to record, how to promote, how to sell. So you dragged me into it? I said coldly. I didn't mean to, she cried. It was just supposed to be me at first. But the audience, they kept asking for more, for something real. Vincent told me it was the only way to keep them paying. I thought if I just Filmed us a few times, it wouldn't matter. You'd never know. I clenched my fists, my anger simmering just below the surface. And the others? Who else is part of this? She hesitated, but the look I gave her broke through whatever resistance she had left. Vincent connected me with two other people, Dana and Greg. They handled the promotions and helped with editing. They brought in their own audience and took a percentage of the profits. I swear, Mike, I didn't think it would get this big. I scoffed. And yet here we are. You didn't just betray me, Amanda. You let strangers into our life. You sold our intimacy, our trust, for money and attention. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't know how to stop, she whispered. It spiraled out of control. I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid you'd leave me. I laughed bitterly. You were afraid I'd leave? Amanda, you didn't just betray me, you exploited me. You violated my privacy in ways I can't even describe. And now, you expect me to feel sorry for you. She sobbed harder, but I had no sympathy left. What's Vincent's full name? I demanded. I don't know, she stammered. We only ever talked online. Same with Dana and Greg. They kept everything anonymous. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Fine. But I'm going to find them. And when I do, they'll regret ever involving you. Amanda looked up at me, her face pale and desperate. Mike, please, don't make this worse. Oh, I'm just getting started, I said, my voice cold and unwavering. You destroyed my life, Amanda. Now I'm going to destroy everything you built with your lies. Armed with Amanda's confession, I wasted no time digging into the identities of her collaborators. I started with her email and messaging apps, combing through her communications with Vincent, Dana, and Greg. While they had taken precautions to stay anonymous, they weren't as careful as they thought. Vincent had used a payment service linked to an email address, which led me to his real name and location. Dana had sent Amanda a poorly anonymized file containing promotional material, and metadata from that file revealed her IP address. Greg was the easiest. He'd shared a photo of himself during a group chat, his face blurred but his tattoo visible. A reverse image search on public social media accounts brought me straight to him. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. Names, addresses, and digital trails connecting them to Amanda's operation. I forwarded all the evidence to my lawyer, who was both impressed and appalled by the sheer scale of their activities. This isn't just about privacy violations anymore, he told me. These people are engaged in criminal activity, fraud, possibly tax evasion, and other offenses. You've got enough here to take them down. I wasn't satisfied with just involving the legal system, though. I wanted to hit them where it hurt. Using an anonymous email, I sent detailed reports of their activities to their employers, families, and even local news outlets. For Vincent, who was a middle manager at a tech firm, this meant his company's HR department receiving proof of his involvement in distributing explicit content. For Dana, who freelanced as a social media consultant, I exposed her schemes to her clients, ruining her professional reputation. Greg, a bartender with a side gig as a personal trainer, suddenly found himself the subject of intense online scrutiny after I leaked screenshots of his explicit chats. The fallout was immediate. Vincent lost his job within days, Dana's social media accounts were flooded with accusations, and Greg's gym suspended him pending an internal investigation. Amanda, meanwhile, was a wreck. She stayed home most days, pacing around the house or staring blankly at her phone. Her collaborators had turned on her, accusing her of being the weak link. She tried to contact them to plead for help, but they ghosted her one by one. One night, she broke down entirely. "Mike," she sobbed, collapsing onto the couch. "I've lost everything. They hate me. My sponsors are gone. Vincent, Dana, and Greg are threatening me, saying it's my fault." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Good," I said flatly. "Now you know what it feels like to have your life ripped apart. Welcome to the consequences of your actions." She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. "Please, can't we just stop this? Can't we go back to how things were?" I shook my head, my voice cold.
No, Amanda.
"We can't. You made sure of that. As Amanda's world crumbled, she became increasingly desperate. Her phone calls to former collaborators turned into tearful pleas, but none of them wanted anything to do with her. Her emails to sponsors and audience members went unanswered, and her attempts to salvage her online presence were met with mockery and condemnation. I had reduced her carefully crafted empire to ashes, and it was only the beginning. One evening, I came home to find Amanda waiting for me in the living room. She looked exhausted, her face pale and her eyes hollow. "We need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I raised an eyebrow. "About what? Another lie you want to spin?" Her lips quivered, but she pushed forward. "I'm willing to give you everything in the divorce. The house, the savings, everything. Just stop."
Isterte her, hun må ved.
"Stop what, Amanda? Holding you accountable for your choices." "No," she cried, her voice breaking. "Stop destroying me. I can't take it anymore, Mike. Please, I'll sign anything. I'll disappear. Just let me have some dignity." I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing through the room. "Dignity? You think you deserve dignity after what you did to me? To us?" She looked down at her hands, silent. "You didn't care about my dignity when you recorded me without my consent." I continued, my voice growing colder. "You didn't care about my dignity when you shared those videos with strangers. So no, Amanda, you don't get to ask for mercy now." Her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to face the consequences of your actions," I said. "And trust me, we're just getting started." She nodded weakly, as if finally understanding that no amount of begging would change my mind. But her next move caught me off guard. "I'll go to the police," she said suddenly, her voice trembling. "I'll confess everything. Maybe they'll be lenient if I cooperate." I froze, studying her carefully. Was this genuine regret? Or was she just trying to save herself from further humiliation? "Do what you want," I said after a moment, turning toward the stairs. "But don't expect me to clean up your mess. You're on your own now." As I walked away, I heard her start to cry again, her sobs echoing through the empty house. But I felt nothing.
No pity, no sympathy.
She had brought this on herself, and I wasn't done yet. Over the next few days, I kept my distance from Amanda. She stayed locked in the bedroom most of the time, and I let her. Her attempts to regain control of her life were futile, and I made sure of it. Every contact, every collaboration, every avenue she tried to rebuild was quietly dismantled by the evidence I'd spread. One morning, I received a call from my lawyer. "Mike, you've got everything you need," he said. "With this evidence, the divorce will be quick, clean, and entirely in your favor. She won't walk away with anything." "Good," I said, my voice steady. "Let's file the paperwork." That evening, I handed Amanda the divorce papers. She looked at them, her hands shaking, tears welling in her eyes. "You really want to do this?" she whispered. "I don't want to do this," I said, my voice hard. "I have to. You gave me no choice." She signed the papers without a word, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her actions had finally crushed her. But I wasn't done yet. The next day, I scheduled a meeting with a private investigator to finalize the details of my plan. I handed over every piece of evidence I had against Vincent, Dana, and Greg, ensuring that their activities would be reported to law enforcement. If they thought they could walk away unscathed, they were about to learn otherwise. Meanwhile, I made sure Amanda's name was tied to the scandal. I didn't expose her fully to the public, yet. Instead, I sent anonymous messages to key people in her life, ensuring that her reputation would never recover. Friends, family, even her former employers, they all knew who she really was. She came to me one night, her face pale and drawn. "Mike, I got a call from my sister today. She knows. Everyone knows." "Good," I said coldly. "You built your life on lies, Amanda. Now you can live with the truth." Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. "You've ruined me," she whispered. "I have nothing left." I crouched down, staring her in the eyes. "You didn't just ruin yourself, Amanda. You ruined us. You ruined everything we built together. And now, You're finally facing what you deserve." I stood and walked away, leaving her broken on the floor. The divorce was underway, her collaborators were being investigated, and her reputation was in tatters. But I still had one final card to play. Amanda's life was in shambles, but I wasn't satisfied yet. She needed to feel the full weight of her betrayal, and I had one last move to make. I had kept the most damning evidence under wraps, biding my time. It wasn't just about Amanda's betrayal. It was about ensuring she could never rebuild the life she'd destroyed. I contacted a journalist who specialized in exposés, someone with a reputation for uncovering hidden scandals. Using an encrypted email, I sent them a carefully curated package. Snippets of Amanda's recordings, screenshots of her messages with Vincent, Dana, and Greg, and the financial records showing the payments she'd received. I left out anything that could directly identify me, keeping my involvement anonymous. Within days, the journalist published an article. It didn't name Amanda outright, but described the operation in chilling detail. A Secret Life, the rise and fall of an online voyeur empire, became the headline of the week, sparking outrage and curiosity across social media. The article hinted at Amanda's identity enough that anyone who knew her could piece it together. Her phone blew up with messages and calls, most of them angry or mocking. She deleted her social media accounts, but the damage was already done. She confronted me that evening, her face pale, her hands trembling. "It was you," she whispered. "You gave them everything." I didn't deny it. "Yes," I said calmly. "You exploited me, Amanda. You humiliated me. Now the world knows who you are." She collapsed onto the couch, her head in her hands. "Why? Why couldn't you just let it go?" "Because you didn't just betray me," I said, my voice cold. "You violated every ounce of trust one had in you. You thought you could use me, profit from me, and walk away unscathed. This isn't revenge, Amanda. This is justice." She looked up at me, her eyes hollow. "I have nothing left," she whispered. "No friends, no career, no future. Is this what you wanted?" I leaned in, my voice a deadly whisper. What I wanted was the truth. What I wanted was a wife I could trust. But since you took that from me, I'll settle for making sure you can never hurt anyone else. Amanda broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably as I walked out of the room. That night, I sat in the quiet of my office, reflecting on everything that had happened. The divorce was nearly finalized. Her collaborators were facing legal consequences, and her reputation was irreparably damaged. But I wasn't done. I had one final message to deliver. The morning the divorce was finalized, I woke up feeling lighter. For the first time in months, I wasn't weighed down by the suffocating rage and betrayal. My lawyer called to confirm what I already knew. Amanda had signed over everything. The house, the savings, and the car, all mine. She walked away with nothing but her clothes and the wreckage of her reputation. I watched her pack her bags that afternoon, her face hollow and gaunt. She avoided eye contact, her hands trembling as she zipped up her suitcase. "Mike," she said softly, pausing at the front door. "I know you won't believe me, but I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you like this." I stared at her for a long moment, my emotions a mix of pity and disgust. "You didn't just hurt me, Amanda. You destroyed everything we had. And for what? Tension? Money? I hope you remember that every time you think about what you've lost." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks, and walked out the door. The sound of it closing behind her was like a final exclamation point on our broken marriage. But I still had one last task. I wrote a letter to the journalist who had broken the story, thanking them for their work and enclosing a final piece of evidence, an account of Amanda's full operation, including details on her collaborators and the extent of their exploitation. I requested anonymity but made it clear that the world deserved to know how deep the rot went. Weeks later, the journalist published a follow-up piece, exposing Amanda's network and the darker undercurrents of her activities. The story went viral, and Amanda became the poster child for betrayal and exploitation. I didn't feel guilty. She had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. As for me, I started rebuilding. The house that once felt tainted by her presence now felt like mine again. I redecorated, threw out anything that reminded me of her, and began focusing on myself, my career, my friends, and finding joy in the small things. One evening, I received a message from someone I didn't recognize. It was brief. "I read your story. Thank you for showing me I'm not alone." It reminded me why I had done this. Amanda's betrayal wasn't just about us. It was about exposing the lies, the exploitation, and the abuse of trust. For the first time in months, I smiled, a real, genuine smile. Amanda was gone, her empire in ruins, and I was finally free.